Morning, friends. Good morning, Sangha. There were a few announcements this morning. Actually, good afternoon. The Heartwood Monastics will be going to California from August 5th to September 5th to study imparting the absolute truth through the Heart Sutra. Maureen and Joe will be offering Dharma during this time. Elsie, Dina, and Sue will alternate facilitating Thursday Dharma contemplations. Please join Maureen and the local Sangha for a special house concert by Peace, Love, and Unity with the opening act, Bliss Hippie, on August 26th at 6:30 in the Dharma Hall at Heartwood. As a reminder, Heartwood offers in-person and online Dharma talks at noon each Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, as well as Learning from Buddha course each Sunday evening at 5 p.m. Please also join us for the 5 mindfulness trainings during which lay practitioners are invited to affirm their commitment to the 5 precepts. This occurs the first Sunday of the month at 10 a.m. Heartwood also continues to offer novena prayers a minimum of once monthly. The novena is a prayer and meditation inspired by the Catholic novena prayer. If you would like to send a prayer request to be included, please send it to prayer@heartwood.org. The following retreat is coming, Taking Refuge with Abhaya Darpana, which will be July 22nd through July 24th. For more information and to register, please go to the retreat on Heartwood's website. To offer donations, please also see the website. Thank you.
Incense burning, all space is filled with the fragrance. All Buddhas smell it from afar. Auspicious clouds gather everywhere. With utmost sincerity, all Buddhas appear. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage and offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas. We pay homage, we offer clouds of incense to the Bodhisattvas and the Mahasattvas.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started. We have been delayed doing some work, preliminary work for our trip to California. So apologies for the late start. Last week, we talked about the beginning of who is Dorje Ching Buddha III. And we spent time at the front end, just starting to look at that. We looked at also last week the lineage and understanding that this lineage goes back many, many, many hundreds of years. So to bring us forward to today, where we are, let's continue to look at chapter 4. Who is Dorje Chang Buddha? And let us start by looking at just who is Dorje Chang Buddha. In the beginning of beginningless time, and we read this last week, but it's worth reading again. There was only the primordial Dharma Buddha, or Dharmakaya Buddha. So even before we hit Dorje Chang Buddha III, before we get to that time and place, we go back, way back to that time. It can only be referred to as a concept since beyond our feeble ability to comprehend or understand it completely. Some call it the absolute or universal truth, which is expressed in Buddhism as infinite wisdom and compassion, while others refer to the void, all that is, and so forth. So we're talking about boundless time. We talked about Native Americans refer to it as the Great Mystery, and some Buddhists refer to it as primordial Buddha as Samattabhadra. So we went through and talked about one Buddha is all Buddha that Dorje Chang Buddha III talked about. And we read through looking at the lineage, and coming to page 61. Why did H.H. Dorje Chang Buddha III come to America? Why would he come to America? Why would he come and bring the Buddha Dharma to us? It was really important for him. That was because Dinas is the Western culture. So we'll need the microphone. Do we have that? Yeah. Remember, we need the microphone primarily for the Zoom.
Because Western culture needed to be introduced to that level of Dharma.
That level of Dharma. So we know that, thank you, Dina. What we know is that for thousands of years, Dharma has been transcending downward into through different lineages and into the present time. And the Buddha Dharma has had transmissions and translations that, for all intents and purposes, have left things out, much like we talked about last week with a game telephone. And through different cultures, different languages, different ways of looking at the Dharma, we've lost some meaning and understanding. So Buddha Master came in order for us, he wanted us to really start developing in the Western world the true Buddha Dharma. Why did my Buddha Master H.H. Dorje Chang Buddha III come to this world, and why is he living in America? There is a prophecy that is often quoted in the Buddhist circles. Guru Padmasambhava, it's a great Buddhist who brought Buddhism to Tibet in the 7th to 8th century, predicted that when iron birds fly and horses run on wheels, the Tibetan people will be scattered like ants across the face of the earth, and the teachings of the Buddha or Dharma will go to the land of the red man. Pretty remarkable, isn't it? That was shared in the 7th to 8th century. Iron birds fly and horses run on wheels. And even if we only consider that, it's pretty remarkable. That prophecy refers to the Western world, and that time has come. We have seen an increasing interest in Buddhism in America, partly due to the Tibetan diaspora or the dissemination of people, Buddhist leaders and practitioners leaving Tibet with a Chinese infusion of the country, and many Tibetans settling in America, partly due to the tremendous immigration of people to the US from other Buddhist countries, especially Southeast Asia, China, Korea, and Japan, and partly due to the many Americans living here who were searching for something more than what their culture and traditions provided them, and who went to Asia and found the path of the Buddha. I was such a person. And so for any of you all who have studied with other teachers, prominent teachers in particular, most of them went to India and found gurus and teachers and were taught at that point the Dharma. We know that over the centuries, many errors have been perpetuated within the various lineages of Buddhism. Anyone who has studied Buddhism knows that we are living in the Dharma ending age, whereby it is becoming increasingly difficult for us to hear, understand, and practice the true Dharma. His Holiness Dorji Teng Buddha III came to correct these errors and to transmit dharmas that are appropriate for this age. And so she goes on to talk about that many of the dharma that was transmitted and taught were for that period for those people. When I look at the Vinaya, that is sort of the rules basically for the monastics, many of those were taught because of the time of the Buddha and what was going on then. Well, now we have iron birds that fly and horses that run on wheels. They didn't have that back then in Buddha's time. And so a lot of those rules and expectations are, as I've been taught and shared, are for foundational, for understanding, for history's sake. And is it reasonable to think that we can't get from here to California without taking an iron horse or wheels? It's not reasonable. So we have to really look at what does the Dharma say now for us? And how can we uphold the truth of the Dharma in our time? Not that we make up rules and say, okay, this is how I want to do it, but to really look at this age and how we can manage what's been taught in this age. So Dorji Teng Buddha III came to correct these errors and to transmit dharmas that are appropriate for this age. It is true that most of what is being presented as the teachings of the Buddha today in America is but a dim shadow of what Shakyamuni Buddha taught and his disciples practiced 2,500 years ago in India, and even later in China, Japan, Tibet, and elsewhere. Many no longer believe that enlightenment is possible in this lifetime or at all, yet that was not the Buddha's original message. So in fact, we can reach enlightenment, but it's not going to just happen like that. We're going to have to spend time practicing, reading, studying, and practicing. There are also many erroneous views and practices that have crept into Buddhist practice that are not only not helpful, but some are even harmful. Several years ago, I was able to go to Thailand and participate in an ordination ceremony for several young women. It was an illegal ceremony held in secret some distance from Bangkok. So again, we're looking at how things have transformed and that women can now, at least in the West, be ordained. But it still doesn't come without a lot of intentional work by our teachers in order to make that happen. So we went through some of that last week. And I just want to finish with that particular section. Theories alone do not lead to liberation. Only a holy being can liberate other beings, and only a holy being must be able to demonstrate miracles. So theories alone, we must cultivate what we have. So I'd like to continue with the good news. And are there people with books? Would you mind reading? On page 63, starting with the good news, Maya. 63 in the book. Midway, the good news.
The good news. Although His Holiness Dorji Chung Buddha III promotes and teaches from all the great traditions and yanas of Buddhism, the Buddha has also given us a simpler and, for those who have the karmic affinity to follow it, a quicker path to liberation from the suffering and worries of this world. That path is introduced in a discourse given by the Buddha entitled, What is Cultivation? And is expounded further in the Supreme and Unsurpassable Mahamudra of Liberation, and other teachings by the Buddha Master. The Mahamudra of Liberation is the highest Buddha Dharma that Dorji Chung Buddha transmitted to Amitabha Buddha and all other Buddhas and great Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions during their cultivation stage. The Buddha tells us that it is a wonderful treasure that leads to the fastest attainment of happiness and benefits if practiced by any cultivator. No matter what sect or school you belong to, and no matter whether you have received an initiation or not, as long as you are one who cultivates yourself according to the Dharma and who practices according to the Dharma set forth in the Supreme and Unsurpassable Mahamudra of Liberation, you can become perfectly accomplished in either the blessings, longevity, and wealth accomplishment Dharma, or the ascendance to the stage of a great Bodhisattva accomplishment Dharma. Oh boy. How do I say
The Zyman.
the Zyman most excellent oceanic mind essence and the ultimate bodhicitta for attaining Dharma nature true suchness oceanic mind essence from the Supreme and Unsurpassable Mahamudra of Liberation have been made publicly available to all who want to learn and practice in order to obtain perfect good fortune and wisdom and to become accomplished. It does not matter what sect of Buddhism you follow, or even if you are a Buddhist. A person who practices this Dhamma does not need a guru or to recognize His Holiness Dorji Chung Buddha III as his or her master to be able to successfully follow this Dharma. The Dharma practice of the Supreme and Unsurpassable Mahamudra of Liberation is divided into the complete practice, the simple and easy practice, and the supreme practice of essence within essence. It is also classified into 7 types of Dharma practices at different levels according to the level of the master giving the initiation. Help me with this other one, Ginseng practice. Ginseng practice, holy and inner tantric or outer tantric initiation. Practice without initiation. Practice based on one's own reading of the rituals without being taught by a master. And even practiced by one who has not taken refuge and does not consider himself a Buddhist.
So there we have it. What is cultivation?
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell. I think it's really important to pause for a minute and really consider that. For those of you that have been practicing the Supreme and Unsurpassable Mahamudra of Liberation, it too is not something that can just happen overnight. It is a practice, and is one that for many of us, we just stayed with the first part. To really let it sink in and then slowly enter in the second part. He's not saying that you have to be special to be able to do this. He's saying you just need to do it. You just need to do it. And that's what Vimra Panyawadi says. Whatever you do, just do it. Just do it. And not get too caught off in all sorts of other guidance and directions. To choose one area and focus on that. Can you just continue on to the next paragraph?
When asked what sect he represented, His Holiness Dorji Chung Buddha III said he represents the Buddha sect, or the sect of Shakyamuni Buddha. The Buddha has also been very careful to explain that it is not his intent, nor should anyone attempt to consolidate all the sects into one giant mega sect. That would be very much against the teachings of the Buddha. Each sect or school represents a particular method or system of methods that is appropriate for the karmic conditions of a particular group of followers. Shakyamuni Buddha taught 84,000 methods to help living beings on the path. The Buddha also told us that Shakyamuni Buddha only taught about 30% of the Dharma he had learned from Dipankara Buddha.
Dipankara?
Dorji Chung Buddha, while on this earth, because that was all those living at that time were ready to hear. All these different methods evolved into particular schools or sects. The Buddha further told us that no matter what the school may be, we do not dismiss it. The Buddha emphasized that the various Buddhist schools must not be lessened. If Buddhist schools decrease in number, then living beings will not be able to correspond with them. That is because each living being has his or her own karmic conditions. The Buddha further told his disciples that whether they were for the Najima, Kaju, Sakya, Gelak, Pure Land, Zen, exoteric or esoteric school, each of them should diligently establish the teachings and precepts of their school and carry out the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. The bibliography at the end of this book provides more on the major sects or schools that still exist, especially in America.
Okay. So when I started in school, elementary school, there was no such thing as a computer, as a cell phone. Right? And when I was working in the schools, the last 5 years of my work, every time I needed some help, I'd go out, and at that time I would grab the nearest 9-year-old to help me figure out how to manage what was going on in the computer. It's a new language. And so you can see how the evolution of what we're learning through Buddhism has needed to shift and change. And what was true thousands of years ago is still true today, but it looks different. And how we walk it out is the same, but it looks different. It's the same. And I was reminded as we were reading, as I was reading through this book, the Dharma of Cultivation, this book that we've had for years now. And, certainly studied it, but spending some time in the last day or two reading through it again just reminds me things that she's talking about are clearly stated in this book, giving us true guidance on how we can step into our day-to-day living and practice. I want us to move forward. For those of you, I hope you're reading this. I don't want to take a lot of time. He goes on to talk about, or she goes on to talk about the chart and the different exoteric Buddhist groups and the lineages. And I'm going to just move us forward to chapter 5. The Big Blue Treasure Book Tour of America. And when I first looked at that, I thought, what are we going to get from knowing what she did in her tour? And I think in some ways, it offers us not only a picture of the level of work that she did to bring the Buddha Dharma out to the Western world. It didn't just happen again overnight. She spent months preparing and then months traveling to not just certain temples, but all libraries, Congress. She speaks of going to Congress. So this is not something that it just sort of showed up. And it's really intentionally been put out there in a very methodical and clear way. So I'd like to, I'd like us to move forward to page 73, those of you that have the book. And if someone could begin reading the bottom of page 73, the treasure book, His Holiness Dorji Chang Buddha III, could now officially be distributed. Would you mind doing that? Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
The treasure book, H.H. Doi Chang Buddha III, could now officially be distributed. Copies were both hand-delivered and mailed to temples and Dharma centers, public libraries, and other locations. The Dharma propagation team would distribute other copies as we did presentations across the country. The team started in Southern California, since our first presentations would be in that area. Thousands of copies were distributed, with copies being hand-delivered or mailed to the governors and state libraries of all 50 states. Our presentation was at the annex of the Bodhi Tree Bookstore on Melrose in West Hollywood on July 6, 2008. This was an auspicious place to begin, in as much as there was a large Bodhi tree behind the bookstore, just like the one that Shakyamuni Buddha had sat beneath over 2,500 years ago. I had been a little apprehensive about following the formal protocols of the Dharma at the beginning and end. Of these presentations, like I normally do when conducting Dharma classes. After all, there would be all types of people there. Some who understood what bowing meant and why we always dedicated the merit of what we did. But there would be some who would find this quite strange and foreign. If it seemed necessary, I explained why we did these things. I was ashamed to admit these doubts because my fears were unfounded. Oh, there were a few who couldn't bring themselves to bow or dedicate merit, but I honestly believe that most of the present were very comfortable with these concepts. Perhaps it was because they realized what an extraordinary event this was. A Buddha really had come to the East, and they just intuitively knew what to do to show their proper respect, no matter what they thought of the religion. There were even participants who went up to the altar after the presentation and did more prostrations and offered prayers.
So right there, again, she's describing the fact that we have a Buddha that has arrived, and what auspicious time we are living in, that we not only have been able to have prior to him leaving this earthly body, opportunity to be with him, but certainly to study his discourses and to be able to step into these practices in such a big and fully comprehensive way. She goes on, thank you, Sarah. In addition to introducing the Buddha, I also introduced his Dharma by presenting the principles and concepts contained in the treasure book as what is cultivation. And so right from the get-go, we're stepping into what is cultivation. And if you don't have the book, there is on the side the 8 fundamental right views of cultivation: impermanence, firm belief, renunciation, true vows, diligence, precepts, meditation, and bodhicitta. I explained the 8 fundamental right views that were required and the order in which they needed to be practiced. You needed to understand impermanence to have correct motivation, develop a firm belief to have sufficient determination, follow with the renunciation that forms the causes of liberation, thus enabling you to take true vows that ensure correct action with a diligence that guaranteed success, take precepts to provide correct direction, practice meditation to achieve wisdom and insight, and finally develop the bodhicitta that enables you to become a holy person or a bodhisattva and eventually a Buddha. And right now, I don't know of any of those that are new to us. Or maybe they are. Is anybody unfamiliar with any of those 8 views? We've been pretty much studying those, not only just in this book, but the way of the Bodhisattva and the discourses and a lot of the Dharma talks that Venerable Panyamani has given. And so they should be really familiar. But this particular paragraph that I wanted to point out, she kind of gives the real sort of the map of how to go about doing this and how one leads to the other. I'll just read that part one more time. You needed to understand impermanence to have correct motivation. Impermanence to have correct motivation. What does that look like for you? What meaning does that have for you? Microphone?
For me, I have a healthy respect for impermanence. I see it as a gift, and I see it as a motivation, not just within my practice here, but in life as it is and shows itself up. I think we need to understand that there's only so much time that we will be given in this body and form as we know it. But at the same time, each and every one of our Sangha members, Panadipa, Panawati, the same thing, and that we need to be grateful and take advantage of every moment and every teaching that we can in order to move forward.
That's right. And it's really right on. We don't have much time, no time to lose. And so that's where number 1 starts. It's about impermanence. Things are going to go away, and now's the time to step into them. Now's the time to really learn what we've got in front of us. Firm belief to have determination. Not just let it pass, but we've got no time to lose, and I'm determined to step in. And I'm committed to step in. Renunciation that forms the causes of liberation. So get rid of stuff that's getting in the way. Habitual tendencies, things that trip us up, become aware of it. With no time to lose, we should become more and more aware of our day-to-day living. One of the things that Venerable asked us to do on Sunday as our assignment for this week was to stop and pause 3 times a day. I was telling Pasita yesterday, my watch goes off every time I need to stand. So I use that as a great reminder to just stand up and take in where I'm at and what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, to ask those questions. Certainly my old training in the schools was that it was Monday, then it was Friday, and then it was Monday, and then it was Friday, and time passed. So truly, I'm hoping that we can really take into practice that time that we can, whatever it takes for you, whether it's a watch, a phone, or as I call it, the threshold moments, where you step through the door and just take it in before you say anything or do anything. And I know I've shared this many times, but when I was in the schools and people would come running up to me to try to ask me something, at the beginning of one school year, I said, please count 5 seconds before you say anything. Wouldn't that be a great practice to do? So firm belief to sufficient determination, renunciation, to take the true vows, our true vows, the diligence, to not just read the book and be done with it, check it off, but be diligent in our practice, be diligent in what we study. The precepts that we take, what are they? Again, I'm brought back to when I was working in the schools, we had a principal that said, what is our mission here at the school? She said at the beginning of the school year, not one person could state the mission of the school. Yet that's what we were there to do, to embark on every school year, to do the mission. So I'll ask of all of us, the precepts or the vows, the personal vows that we take, what are they? And just let's take a minute just to think about it. I'm not asking you to share them, but how do you know that you're doing it? What are they? Can you recite them? For some of us, there were 10. For some of us, there were 5. For some of us, they're just daily vows that we take. Your intention. To practice meditation. Whatever that meditation is, whether it's formal. Yesterday, I drove Sada down to Charlotte via her old homestead, and I had plenty of opportunity to pause at the lights, the traffic, in the moment. Take it in. Whatever that practice is, do we do it? Do we do it and bring it forward into each day? So practice meditation to achieve wisdom and insight, and finally, develop the bodhicitta that enables you to become a holy person or bodhisattva and eventually a Buddha. And we spent so much time really talking about the bodhisattva path. And hopefully we're continuing to read the book that was started several months ago. But they're really great guidelines, and that we get moment by moment practice sessions all the time. And so those are the 8 methods. There's the path for us to do cultivation. And so even if we just read those every morning before we start our day, to begin our day, and maybe have a little card in our wallet or our pocket that we read halfway through the day. And then at the end of the day, to do our reflection. How did I do? How was my belief? Where was there impermanence? Where did that show up? Was I diligent in my practice? And whatever I did throughout the day. Did I take time to sit quietly? Last evening, this hammock went up over here in front of Santicaro's room. And there he was, swinging in the hammock. And just that was meditative for me. But to listen to the birds, to just sit quietly. And we are very, very lucky to have this property here where we've got birds singing from morning till night. But we just stop and really listen to that. And so the 8 fundamental right views of cultivation, and they're in this book. And for those of you that have it, I think just about everybody should have it. We have copies for you to read. They're in this book in great detail. It gives us some wonderful guidance on how to do that. She goes on to talk about what the schedule was and where they went and who they saw. And I'm going to continue to let you read that and to move forward to 3 already at 1 o'clock. Where she went and started sort of her process of looking at where she was going and why her intention was to travel to certain parts of the country because it was good weather. And if you're driving in a van, you really do need to take that into account. And even that intention was diverted. So we can roll back to impermanence. Best laid plans, they say. But that didn't stop her. That didn't stop her from stepping forward. no time to lose. And so I reflect back on our own practice and our own day-to-day life. What deters us? And before we get detoured, can we stop and say, is that a real detour I need to take? Do I need to move forward? Or is moving forward not necessary? The detour is really best. A friend of mine just started leaving Alaska. She's driving out in a van with her car being towed behind. And so every day there's a little bit of a snippet of what's going on. And there's the main bridge that is taken out. There's one road out, the Elkhorn Highway. And the main road was out just 2 weeks ago. So she was trying to decide, what is she going to do? Which way is she going to go? And she decided to just keep moving forward. And sure enough, there's one lane across that bridge to get her into Canada. So you get to think about it in your everyday life. Where are the detours? Driving up 26, I'm always wondering, should I take 26? Should I go around? What's the likelihood of getting to my appointment on time? Leave an hour early, still get there late? You never know. Those are moment-to-moment practices. And once again, she just writes in a box on page 77, the 8 fundamental right views are the foundation of cultivation, liberation, and accomplishments in the Dharma. 8 fundamental right views are the foundation of cultivation, liberation, and accomplishment in the Dharma. It's not much. And it's a lot. And especially a lot if we don't practice. I want to draw our attention to page 78, and I'm aware of the time, but I'll go just a little over. The top of the page, she says, I stress the importance of learning the fundamental teachings of the Buddha that are common to all forms of practice prior to receiving the secret esoteric practices. So prior to receiving esoteric practices, she continued to practice the forms, common forms that are common to all of us. I also talked about how when one follows the correct Dharma, one receives the blessings of holy beings who will guide one in one's practice. So it's really believing in the fact that we can get guidance, not just from our Sangha and our teachers, but from holy beings that are there for the asking. She talks about the holy beings that show up throughout her travels. What a wonderful gift to know that you're being supported and guided as you travel through. The bottom of 78, she says in a box, bodhicitta is actual conduct based upon great compassion that aids living beings in becoming Buddhas or bodhisattvas. It is the mind of love in the holy sense that the enlightened and the unenlightened, or the holy and the ordinary, both have. And one more time, I'll read that. Bodhicitta is actual conduct based upon great compassion that aids living beings in becoming Buddhas or bodhisattvas. It is the mind of love in the holy sense that the enlightened and the unenlightened, or the holy and the ordinary, both have. And that is from one's cultivation. And I would like to end our time with that today. Thank you. Timing's everything. That's perfect. Thank you for that, Suka. That was yeah. All right. Okay. Can someone give us a closing metta, please?
May the merit of our time together be a great gift, not just for ourselves, but to be spread for others with love, peace, compassion, joy. May you smile at a stranger and remember to always smile to yourself.